Hey guys, welcome back to DemDMs. I'm Panda Ghost.
I'm Fox Ghost.
And I'm Matt.
And this is our first episode of Fixing 5e, Critical Hits. So if everyone's ready, let's slide on in. So first up, we're going to start with how crits work in 5th edition, which is you roll a nat 20, you double your dice roll.
Yep.
Yay.
Pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, and then you add your modifier to the damage after that.
Right.
Yeah.
And any other die that you roll. So your smites, your
Correct.
sneak attacks, that all gets doubled.
Mm-hmm.
Which, as a rogue, I like that.
As a paladin, I like that.
Sure.
However, as we've talked about in other videos before, like our Q&A video, it has led to weapons being boring, right? They're very formulaic,
Sure.
and as opposed to 3.5 weapons, they actually had crit ranges, ranging anywhere from your nat 20 or 19 to 20 or 18 to 20.
Like a rapier.
Yeah, as well as variance in your crit multipliers. So most of them did ×2, some did ×3. I'm not sure if there was a ×4 crit. I'm not positive on that.
I think the scythe was a crit, was a ×4. I think the scythe was the only ×4.
That is possible. That sounds right.
Now, a lot of times, if you had a 19 to 20 or an 18 to 20 crit range, your crit damage would only be ×2. The ×3 or, in some cases, ×4 were only reserved for your nat 20 only criticals.
Sure.
Now, in 3.5, along with that that higher crit range, you had to confirm your criticals. So you had to roll again if you threatened the critical with your
natural 20 or
whatever your crit range would be for your weapon. And then you have to confirm the critical by hitting the enemy's AC again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think that's a fair balance with having a higher crit range. If you were to implement this into 5e.
Now, what happens if it was... I still think... I think a nat 20 should be a nat 20, regardless.
So if you roll a nat 20, you don't have to roll the critical. Okay.
The confirm.
In both cases, for those that don't know, in both cases, the rolling the nat 20 would still cause you to hit. It would just be the confirm would determine if it's a critical hit or not, if it's just a normal hit. And usually what this confirm was you roll another nat 20, and if you hit their AC, it's a critical hit, right?
Yes.
The first one is just...
You rolled another d20, you said nat 20.
Oh, sorry, yeah. If you roll another d20 and add your normal modifiers for the attack, if you hit them, then it's a crit after rolling that first natural 20 on the first die, or whatever your crit range happened to be.
Yeah.
Right. So even if you, in 3.5, even if you hit a nat 20, you still have to confirm the critical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, to me, you've already rolled the nat 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
and also...
Go ahead.
In 5e, not every class gets multi-attack. In 3.5, everyone got multi-attack, maybe at different times, but everyone had multiple attacks. So what Fox Ghost is saying about the about it's always a crit on a 20 no matter what, I like that more. It's more fair and balanced to adjust for the lack of multi-attack.
Sure.
I think it makes sense on if you have a rapier and you hit at 18, okay, you might crit, but you have to confirm that. That makes sense.
Yeah, so if you're saying if there was a critical threat range, there should be also then a confirm. You know what I mean?
Except for on a nat 20, which is
on a nat 20. Right. Yeah, I think the simplicity of 5th edition lends itself to only doing the nat 20. I think that with their idea of trying to shrink the rules down, that's one of the things that they decided had to go. But I do think, to the point of the crit ranges and the multipliers, those made certain weapons more interesting than others and established a variance to them, right, that we saw back then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it made sense logically why certain weapons did better than others. You know, a rapier was an 18 to 20 crit range. Why? Because it is a single point hitting somebody, right? So the chances of you hitting a more vital point and getting through, you know, like a rib cage or something, is a lot easier, right, than like a slashing weapon.
Yeah.
So, you know, these types of things would also lend itself to kind of fixing one of our other problems that we have, again, from our Q&A video. Definitely check that out. Was, you know, the variance of the weapons kind of being shrunk down to a handful, comparatively.
Yeah, and actually thinking about Fox Ghost's fix for the, you know, or suggestion about 20s being an auto crit even with the crit range, that actually fixes the other issue with the fighter ability that increases their crit range. That could just increase their auto crit range instead of the crit range of their weapon instead.
Yeah. Now, one thing that is from the 3.5 critical hit era was that things like the rogue sneak attack did not get doubled with the roll, right? And I think this was actually a good change for 5th edition because rogues only get one attack.
Yes.
Right? So if they critical, it means about the same as if like a fighter criticaled on one of their 3 attacks at that same level.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that kind of helps the damage balance out. But I think there is the case made where, you know, for back in 3.5, when you had all these modifiers and stuff like that, they did allow you to double the modifiers as well as the damage dice.
Yeah, which is fine. Like, I don't know why they got rid of that in 5th edition. It doesn't add that much. It does not add
modifiers to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it defines what it helps to define what a critical hit is supposed to be in the canon of the world, right? Like, is it like you suddenly get a burst of strength so you can do more damage, or is it you hit a more accurate spot that does damage regardless of you? Does that make sense? Like,
I see what you're saying.
If it's a strength-based weapon, are you putting more strength into it, thus adding the modifier would make sense, doubling that would make sense? Or is it just the dice because you hit a more particular spot on an enemy, right? So,
well, here's the thing.
I can see the ups and downs.
It could be either, in my opinion.
Or both. They could be both simultaneously.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You hit with you took a mace and you crack someone really hard against the back of the head. I mean, you put more strength to it and you hit a vital point. I mean...
Yeah, I see the trade-off, though, maybe back in 3.5, where maybe because you could get modifiers of like plus 16 to your damage roll, depending on how you built the character, that they would kind of trade that off of, okay, well, you get the modifier doubled, but you don't get sneak attack doubled, right? Like that, I could see that kind of trade-off, so maybe that kind of trade-off went the opposite way in 5th edition. I don't know. But I kind of like it better now, right? Like if you're asking me to double either the sneak attack and extra dice or the modifier, I'm going to pick the extra dice because the modifiers in 5th edition are so small.
It doesn't.
You're not going to make
it
that.
Doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Although it might matter if you're doing a 3 times multiplier, right? So like, let's say you have an 18 in strength, right? You know, and you're using a great sword, and in 3.5 that had a ×3 multiplier. You know, instead of 4, now you have 12 extra damage if you're multiplying the modifier as well. Yeah, the bonus.
Yeah. So where are we thinking here? I think right now we're kind of the mindset where bringing back crit ranges, right, and the variance and multipliers with that. Bring that back, and maybe keep the confirming only to the higher crit range. Which would that then apply to the champion fighters 19 to 20?
I would say that 19 to 20 that the champion fighter gets is the auto crit. So they have a higher auto crit range than anyone else.
So you have your confirmed crit range, your auto crit range, essentially.
Yeah. Okay. So then, you know, with the confirming, obviously the confirming in 5th edition would be a little bit easier than in 3.5. Correct. Right? Because the 3.5 version, I mean, your ACs could get up into the 30s.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure somebody could make a build that still does that in 5th edition.
Yeah.
But
not as common. Not as common.
Yeah. But was that counteracted by you having a high modifier on your attack as well? Because most modifiers in general were also increased. So does that still... did that balance that out? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't think confirming is going to make or break the person. I feel like honestly, it's gonna almost be like a simple formality for the most part, right? But you're still giving them the hit. You just might be taking away the crit.
Right. Exactly. Right. And you're never losing the hit. You're always getting the hit if you hit that crit range, right? You're always getting the hit if you hit that 20, right? Yeah. So like, you're still getting that excitement of rolling the 20, right? And that's what's important. But it is more fun, you know. It'll add a lot of, because it'll add a lot more danger. Like, because don't forget, this is applying to the monsters now too. Like, one of the biggest problems I had with 5th edition is you have these players with these huge hit point pools, right? And the chances of like once you get past 10th level, it's just like they're never gonna die, right? To anything other than an ancient red dragon. And even that is a maybe, right? But now, if you have an orc that whacks someone and hits a crit on a greatsword, that's gonna hurt a lot more than a normal crit.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this, as a side note: we all know that you can crit with a spell, right? If it's a to hit spell. Do we like the idea of something like Spell Sniper, or possibly some adjustments to casting a higher level would increase the crit range for those spells? I kind of like it for Spell Sniper as a feat more than I like it as a mainstay.
Yeah,
I would say it'd be more of a feat thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of feats and increasing crit range, back in 3.5, which is another thing I think should be brought back, is feats that increase the crit range for a specific weapon, right?
Sure.
Which is how it worked in, you know, you took specializations in longsword or whatever weapon you wanted, and you could increase your to hits and your crit ranges, which I like that being back in as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, as a side thing, this might be something that we can explore more in a future video as well, is the size modifier of, or the size damage dice differing for like small to medium. I think that would also kind of adjudicate the, you know, gnome barbarian doing the same as a human or Goliath barbarian, same damage. Right. You know what I mean? It might kind of help kind of nullify that issue as well.
But I think that's more for another video.
Yeah, for another video. But yeah, anything else you guys want to hit on for the crits here?
I think that covered everything.
Yep, I think we've covered everything.
All right, so what I think we're gonna do, guys, is we're gonna type up our possible new adapted rule for this new crit case, and we're gonna put that down in a link in the description. If you want to check that out, by all means, go check it out. And you can maybe use that for your upcoming games. Otherwise, if you want to let us know about, you know, what you thought about our suggestions, and, you know, or if you had suggestions of your own, put those down in the comments section below. We want to hear from you guys, as always. And make sure you're liking this video, subscribing, and sneak attacking that notification bell to be notified of our videos. But until then, I think this is going to wrap this one up, guys. So join us next time we slide into DemDMs.
Bye.